start the recording, if you don't mind. Please introduce yourself, Adam.
Hi, my name is Adam Saligman. I am from USA. I'm from a small city called St. Louis. I've been in Almaty probably for too long. I've worked at one international school, one new progressive state school. My big hobby here has been speech and debate for high school, starting an international league. And this year we had our first ever Kazakhstan team represent Kazakhstan and USA. So we're extremely proud of that. And yeah, I went to Washington University in St. Louis like a million years ago. And for undergrad, studied English literature and writing. I went to University of Michigan for graduate school, where I studied secondary school education, curriculum, and instruction. I'm not sure what else to introduce for this meeting. I guess like right now, I lead the debate league. I'm a speech and debate coach. I'm a teacher of literature and writing, and I'm also a trainer of teachers. So that's
Thank you very much, Adam. Thank you. Let's begin today's session. We're going to start with just some general tips on how to write an essay for U.S. admissions for U.S. colleges. Then we're going to talk about application process in general, and then when the time is left, we'll have a Q&A session, and everyone is welcome to ask any questions that they may have.
all right.
So let's begin with writing the essay. Adam, would you share anything from your experience?
Yeah. In general, universities, especially competitive ones, so many thousands of kids apply each year. And obviously there's a lot of overlap in essays. A lot of people write the same things, and the readers get bored of them very quickly. It's the essay is a chance for you to make yourself intriguing and interesting enough for the universities to want to get to know you more. If that makes sense. It's to make them curious about you. There are a lot of myths about it, like, oh, as many extracurriculars as I have, the better. That's not true, not at all. They care that you have a dedication to the things you love, that you actually have passions and you pursue them, not that you just do things with a superficial interest. And the difference between a genuine passion and a superficial interest, they usually are quite clear in the writing. That's one thing. Two, it should be a narrative. It should be your story. Don't make it just a summary of yourself. A narrative and a summary are very, very different types of writing. And again, the narrative has to show, like any compelling story that you'll see in the movies or you'll read in books, character development. You have to grow, show some humility, show some capacity for self-reflection and self-awareness. This is a very important thing. I guess the third thing, and the last thing to answer this one question, is it's very important that these schools, they see that, trying to think of the best way to say this. You have curiosity, and that you're independent in your endeavors. You don't do things just because adults or teachers tell you to do things, or especially your parents. You do things because you are guided internally. And schools, they're not selfless. They don't accept you because they're a charity. And you know that because of the incredible amount of money that American universities charge. It's insane. They're not charities. They accept students because they believe the students will make the school a better place, a more competitive place. They want students who have a sense of leadership, initiative, who will start things, not a student who needs to be guided as much.
Right. Adam, in your experience, what do you think colleges look for in the essay, and how does one go about showing that in their essays?
Again, sincere passion and interest in things. The way you write about it conveys that. I teach literature, and I had a colleague tell me or ask me, what if a student finds a book to be boring? Yeah, that might happen, but it's kind of the teacher's job to really ignite the student's passion for that book and make them realize that this book, it might have been written in another country 200 years ago, but it's still somehow about them. It's relevant. It's not just that it's a relevant story, it's personal. And that's really important. So when it comes to writing an essay and trying to tell your story, you need to show that things are personal for you, that you are fully invested in what you're doing. You're mentally present. You're not just, oh, I did debate for 1 year, and then I did swimming for 1 year, and then I was on a tennis team. That was cool. Yeah, there's no interest in any of that. And that's just the question I would have if I was reading the essay is, then why did you do these things? If you don't sound interested in it the way you write about it, I'm not interested. I'm even less interested in reading about it. Trust me. So
Right.
it's important that you show passion through a narrative that is active, in the moment, and compelling. But in addition to that, like details help. Humans are social and empathetic creatures. Well, I'm not, but most humans are. They really do want to be, if they're reading the essay, they want to be drawn in. Now, their attention span is limited, but they're definitely giving you a chance. And if they can relate to you, if they can imagine themselves in your shoes, that helps. If you're very clear about the sensations you have. And if they can understand you at the beginning of the narrative and when you're challenged, and at the end, that'll make it more compelling.
Okay, Adam, thank you. Thank you very much. I have a question that may be relevant to most people here. Let's say I'm just starting on writing an essay, and I don't really know how to start, and I don't know how to choose a topic. What would you recommend, or what is this typical procedure that you take with your students?
Well, usually, if you're writing for the Common App has prompts. Now, the last one is always write your own essay or like create your own prompt. Usually people don't opt for that. They opt for one of the six or so other prompts they have. So we go over which one the student really wants to pick. I've had students change their prompts like at the end of the process because the story just wasn't going anywhere. And that's fine, that happens. Mark Twain rewrote the ending of Tom Sawyer, which is a 5th grade kid's book, 59 times until he was happy with it. You can imagine how many times he he had to play with Huck Finn, which is a much more substantive book. But with your essay, it definitely takes time to develop those ideas. Your essay is not something you should write at the last minute. Now, I'm sure every year you'll find students at like Harvard and Yale who wrote it then the night before. The odds are that's not likely to happen. Those students have a lot of experience in writing. They have a different background. And even then, it was still a gamble. This is a process that you want to take time. If you're applying ED in October, you want to have like the essay topic chosen and you need to start like in August. It takes a while. If you want to have it done by December, I would say start by September. Just don't rush yourself. So that's one piece of advice that I would give. If you really don't know what to write about and you want to try to be more free, I have collected a lot of prompts over the years from different schools that I think are cool and very good at evoking creative responses. I even have there's University of Chicago, which is an amazing school for university application essay prompts. People think they're cruel at first because they are hard, but I think what a lot of students don't understand is that those hard questions they give you a chance to show your creativity more easily than the Common App does. It's easier to write a generic essay to a generic prompt. It's more fun to write an insane essay to an insane prompt.
Right. I agree. University of Chicago, the notorious questions.
Do you know how they come up with them? I think I read somewhere once where the freshman class at the end of the first year writes the prompts for the next year. So it's kind of like hazing, right? They suffered through the hard prompts in the application process, so they get to like create the ones to punish the next year's crop of kids. It's a beautiful cycle of torture. As a teacher, I'm genuinely impressed by it.
Yeah. Adam, regarding the topics for the essays, what do you think are, in your experience, the most common topics that students have chosen over time? What do you think, or I guess, which topics people maybe should avoid, in your opinion, and which ones are usually, I guess, the most popular ones?
The cliche story of the extracurricular in winning a competition. Yeah, that's really annoying.
Okay.
Another common thing is, or another common mistake, I guess we'll call it, is when people just write, they don't even focus on one thing. They just try to put everything that's in their application folder in one essay. And yeah.
What would you what would you recommend people choose writing?
It really depends on the person, right? You could make going clothes shopping with your grandmother, assuming that's what you do. You can make that an interesting essay. You can make getting bronze medal in the Olympics a boring story. Writing is a very, there's a wide range of results. It's a very big skill. So it really depends. When I work with students, we talk about the students' interests, their stories, and we try to find something that would be more unique and compelling. What Rinar writes about will be very different from Timur, at least I hope. That would be better for both of them. What Alima and Aisha write, again, it's really based on their personal interests, passions, and experiences. It would be very foolish of me to prescribe one particular topic for these students.
Yeah. Do you think the topic, so basically the topic doesn't really matter as long as you can write a great essay on any topic?
Things like tone matter. Things like details that people will not forget. They matter.
Right. What do you think, are there any topics that people should avoid in writing their personal statements?
Again, like just talking about an extracurricular activity that you've done at school.
Okay. All right.
You can mention the extracurricular activity, but there's got to be a story in it.
Thank you, Adam. There's a question from Arujan. She's asking, is there any difference between essays for bachelors and masters?
Yes. Masters, I mean, it's not like the Common App. You're doing more of a personal statement. It's kind of, it is a narrative, it is your story, but you're kind of explaining why you're going into that program and at that particular school.
I hope that answered the question, Arujan. All right, Adam, I have one more question. So you mentioned, how students either go through challenge or challenge themselves, and how that shows in the essay. What do you think in general, for example, sometimes students have certain challenges in their lives. Do they have to write about their challenges, or not necessarily? Is it a good idea to write about the challenges that you've encountered in life?
Well, I mean, again, if you think there's a story that'll show you in a light that'll make people want to get to know you better, then yeah, it's something you can write about, but you don't have to milk your tragedies for more than they're worth. I know that's a very harsh way of saying this, but it doesn't have to be like you trying to make them feel sorry for you. Nobody wants to read that. As sad as it might be for you, unfortunately, that's the case, right? In literature, there's basically the hero's journey, the protagonist's journey. You can simplify it to 4 steps. I know I've seen it in Russian in 18 steps, but it's unnecessary. You can simplify them all into 4 steps. First one is innocence or ignorance, as I call it. The protagonist, main character, doesn't really, there's something he or she does not know. Life is fine because there's something that they don't know. Phase 2 is 1 moment long. It's initiation. Something happens which shatters that person's world. Like in The Lion King, when Mufasa dies, that would be the moment of initiation. In Iron Man, the first movie, it would be when he gets captured in Afghanistan. Chaos is the compelling phase. This is the one that we're interested in for this type of essay. Chaos is really about coping. When after the initiation, the character's world is upside down, and it's the process of how you deal with that. How do you make sense of it? How do you try to get control of yourself and gain an understanding of how the world really is and how you can survive in this world that you're just now coming to understand? And unlike The Lion King, it's probably more complicated than singing Hakuna Matata. I hope so, because if it is that easy, that's a boring essay. Then the 4th stage is resolution. How do you get to some kind of understanding and peace? Like in any great work of literature, the focus of the story should be in the 3rd phase. The first one's boring, 4th one's boring, 2nd one is 1 moment long. It should all be, how do you cope? How do you grow? And it doesn't have to be a sob story. Like if you've lost someone in your family when you were young, you don't have to write about that. We're all challenged in different ways. It doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to have gloom, doom, and death. It just has to have some kind of challenge.
Wow, thank you, Adam. So basically, how you cope with it, what you do, and what you learn along the way is the most important part of your essay, right?
Yes, I would agree with that.
What if, let's say, there are challenges that someone has a challenge, but they haven't gone through that part of, learning and doing and growing? What should they do then?
Jay Gatsby, he never made it out of chaos. People still like to read about him. Well, maybe they don't like to, but my students are going to have to this year. all jokes aside, that is a good point. So there are a couple of options. You could tell a different story, one where you have reached that stage of resolution. It's not one hero's journey in a lifetime, right? There are many hero's journeys we have on any given day. Many moments of initiation, some very small, some extremely small, hopefully none that are too big. Or you could focus on the chaos phase and how you're still coping and you're still trying. You're 17 or 18 when you are applying. They don't expect you to be perfect. They don't expect you to have things figured out, right? It is okay to be still in the process of learning and discovering. I would much rather accept a student who is honest about still trying to understand things than an arrogant jerk who says, oh, I got it. I did debate for high school in 1 year and I know debate. That's immediately a red flag for me.
Yeah, interesting, Adam. I guess my next question, or if anyone has any questions, если есть у кого-то какие-нибудь вопросы, что-то было непонятно, пожалуйста, задавайте вопросы, пишите в чат, с радостью ответим.
The supplemental essay question, it depends on the prompt, right? I had a student apply to Columbia in 2013. And one of the questions was, without any explanation, rank the top 10 websites you visit the most often. And yeah, there's no way you guys are going to tell the truth on that one. So the question was, how do you balance a list which speaks well for you but doesn't seem fake? That's interesting and quirky but not weird. That's curious but not nerdy. The supplemental essays have a variety of prompts, and it really depends on what that prompt is. So I can't answer that question unless it's on an individual basis. Common App wants 650 words max. It's up from 500. It used to be 500.
Okay. What universities usually want to see from gap year statement? What to avoid?
It's kind of the same rules as before. They want to see, like, the difference is they want to see that you've used your time well. Have you sat on a couch and watched Netflix for a year? Because if you have, that's probably not something you want them to know. If you're going to take a gap year, what are you doing productively? What are you doing to better yourself?
I hope that answered the question, Aruzhan. Alina, is there any generalized structure for writing a successful admission essay?
If there was, it would be pretty old and boring by now because everyone would do it.
Okay.
I always help students shape their responses. And yeah, I guess there are a few formats that are more easy than others. Hell, I gave you the hero's journey, which is itself kind of a template or a format, but it doesn't mean there aren't ways to make it stand out on top of that.
Okay. There's a question from Ayganım.
Does she mean if our goal doesn't stand out?
stands out from thousands of others. How will we stand out with our
Is that what she means?
if our goal stands out from thousands of other students, how will we stand out?
'Cause I'm not sure I understand the question. If our goal doesn't stand out, that probably
Айгеном, можете задать вопрос еще раз? Можно на русском. Можете в микрофон. Okay, she's not responding.
Alright. We'll skip it for now.
Мы должны выделиться среди тысячи других студентов. Как мы можем этого достичь? Okay, so basically the question is, how do we stand out among thousands of students if we don't have that much experience, but I guess the only thing we have is sincerity.
Again, it's interests, right? Are you interested in things? Do you try to do things? That's important, right? You don't have to win a gold medal. You don't have to, I mean, it's very hard to be unique at this age, especially. It's even harder. I mean, it's still hard when you're my age. But they want to see like what your goals are, how you think, how you see the world. They want to be interested in that vision. It's less about what you've done and more about how you try to do things.
Айгеном, I hope that answered your question. There's a question from Aizada. What should we not write about in the personal statement?
All the people you murder every single day. That's probably not good. No, again, things that are cliche.
Okay.
I had a student say that he wanted to go to Cornell because it was in New York City, which was funny because it's not in New York City. And yeah, he had to take that out pretty quickly.
Okay.
You want to, you don't want to make it generic. You don't want to make it like you're just trying to please them, right? You also don't want to, like, imagine this is kind of like trying to score a date with someone. Like, if you say you want to go to Harvard because of their ranking, that's like going up to someone saying that I want to date you because you're rich and hot. Most likely people know if they're rich and hot. The schools know if they're number one. And as a pickup line, it's just not going to work. If it does, then I really have misunderstood humanity. So you want to avoid making appeals that are like that. If you want to appear to be sincere, you have to find something this school has that's unique that you're interested in doing. Something that brings you to that school individually. Hold on for 1 second.
Sure. Так, ребята, если у вас есть какие-то вопросы, задавайте, с радостью отвечу. Okay, Adam is back. Adam, I have a question about the supplemental essay when colleges ask you why us, the why us essay. What is your strategy, or what would you recommend for students to do in preparation for writing the essay?
Great. There's this thing in debate that's really helpful. I don't know if we've heard of it. It's called research. It's really helpful to know what the school offers. There's another cool thing called self-awareness, where you have to know your own interests, and you have to understand like what it is that you want and how the school can help you achieve your goal.
Okay, thank
One
you.
second.
Sure.
I'm back. Sorry. Last time. I'm here for good.
All right. Okay, Adam. Thank you for the answer. It's just from my own experience, what I've encountered working with students. A lot of the times, what colleges, okay, first of all, people in Kazakhstan don't have an option of visiting college campuses, right?
Most people don't. 99.9% don't.
Right.
I've known people who have.
Okay.
But yeah, they're not the majority.
Right. And most of the time colleges say that they have, so many things, and I find it that students have a difficult time in figuring out what's really unique about colleges. They find that most colleges offer the same things, and I don't know, they even kind of like talk about themselves, they market themselves in the same manner. Do you have any recommendations or suggestions for what should one do in such a situation?
A lot of people apply to schools just because of ranking or whether or not they think people know the name. Is the name recognized internationally? If you're going to spend 4 years of your life and God knows how much money to be at that school, you better enjoy being there. So things that a lot of people don't think matter, like climate, do you want to be rural? Do you want to be suburban? Do you want to be urban? If so, like which city do you want to be in, right? These things do matter. I'm sure I'm sure most people can find a pretty good life at most schools, but again, do you really prefer to be in a warm place? Do you hate snow? Do you want to be in a big city that has a lot of social activities that are easy to find? Or would you rather be in a small town where you actually have to, get out of your dorm and meet people, even if they don't, even if it's across a barrier of culture? It really depends on who you are and what you want. So the first point is these things that people think of are superficial are actually not. It is your lifestyle. It is your day-to-day life. It does matter. You don't want to be unhappy for 4 years while you're studying. That's one thing. Two, it is possible to research what schools have that they're famous for, right? If you're looking for architecture, which schools have a better program for it? Now, I know in undergrad, it might matter a little bit less, but which schools might have a club or an opportunity or are in a city where the architecture classes get to do cool things? And these things are not always the most easy to find, but they are possible to find. You go onto a school's website, you look at the departments they have, you look at professors, you look at what the professors are interested in, you look at what they do. Is there a professor that inspires you? Is there a class you want to take? Is there a program? I'm sure a lot of schools have an architecture school, right? But not all of them do it the same way. Some have different visions than others. The school that I went to, Washington U, they had this professor who took his students into like the poorest parts of the city, and he showed them and he had the students teach kids how to draw. And some of you are thinking, what does this have to do with architecture? You're not designing buildings. You're not really practicing the trade, right? But this is the professor's philosophy. It has everything to do with architecture because you're not building the Bachelor Tower, which is symbolic, but not a building for people. It's something for people to see, but it's not for people to use. Or like any of the buildings in Dubai. Yeah, they give an image, we have wealth, but how many empty the offices in those buildings are empty. You're building a building is for public space. You want a building which will build community, which will encourage people to come in, not intimidate them. And that's why he does it. He's teaching the students his philosophy of architecture. And if you agree with it, if you're inspired by it, that's a good reason to apply to that school. So you want to look, and it takes a lot of time. Again, for the amount of money it takes to go abroad and the amount of miles you travel, assuming there is a world after COVID, and just the amount of time you would be there. You better do that research first. It's really important. So I understand this answer is frustrating, but it's really important to look at what professors at that school are doing, what those programs offer that maybe not every program does.
Okay, Adam, thank you. There's a question from Malika, and she just asked what I had asked you. And Malika, basically, in short, do more research, study the options, the specialties of each program, find out about the professors, what they do, how they teach. There are differences in that. It's a little bit frustrating, but you just have to do more research to really understand the differences between similar but different schools. Okay, there's one question from Aygirim. She's asking about personal statement for a graduate school. Should we mention our achievements, or better to use storytelling like challenges you have faced?
For me, I would hope that my achievements are part of the story.
Should your personal statements for graduate school be in a narrative style like for undergraduate?
Yeah, I think they should. My graduate school essay, and again, that's not the only reason why I got in, I'm sure, but my essay for graduate school was explaining how I switched from an earth and planetary science major to English lit and writing. Because that's kind of a big change. And how I ended up in China for a year before I went there. I had a lot to kind of explain. And rather than make a disjointed mess, I wanted to clean it up into one story that has clear development throughout. Whereas even though I didn't know it at the time, every step I took was leading me to becoming a teacher at University of Michigan. Well, not a teacher who works there, but you know what I mean. Studying the graduation, studying in the graduate school for education there.
Thank you, Adam. One other question from Aijan. Is it a good idea to write about the insights that I got from my workplace? And she says, where I worked together with my mom, like a team.
It can't, yeah, that could be interesting. Depends what those insights are, but it's usually a good way to go.
And she says, it's totally not related to the major I want to major in, which is environmental science.
That's not a problem. Like, there are more connections than you might see at first, right? There's a skill that you learn from working with your mom in those experiences that might make you a better student when you're studying environmental science. Like, there are many ways to connect it to personal traits. And part of being an English lit major is I see connections even when they're not there. That's kind of my major.
That's a very awesome skill to have. Okay, are there any more questions from Let's talk a little bit about the admissions process in general. I don't know, what do you think has changed since COVID?
A lot, and it's not just COVID, it's the Trump years as well. I think I've been reading about this, and I, a lot of America's made it harder to become a citizen. Well, not that's an oversimplification. They make it harder to stay on and work in America after after you graduate, which means a lot of people probably find it less worth it to pay all that money to go to US. So I think the number, like during COVID, of course, the applicants to universities in the US went down, but I'm not sure that that's the only reason. I think some of the political choices that were made about immigration and having foreigners come and work in our country has really affected things. I think some schools are definitely some schools are still eager and thirsting for international students. They're also thirsting for money from international students. That doesn't really help the scholarship thing. I'm sorry about that. But if you're looking at like the top schools like MIT or Harvard, I'm guessing that hasn't changed. I'm guessing those schools are still having the same types of numbers they've had before.
Okay, yeah. Sorry, there's one question from Akjol. Does it really matter to have a background in a major area you want to apply to and to write about it, or no?
I mean, if it did entirely, then I can't see how anyone would study poli-sci or social sciences, right? Because these are not offered in a lot of schools. It's limiting, right? So the good news is not necessarily. If you're applying for undergrad, then most schools, like the one I went to, WashU in St. Louis, they have an arts and sciences program where it's kind of general. My older brother went to UPenn and he studied economics, but not in the business school. He was in the arts and sciences school as well. It's versatile. Like you have a lot of choice. And even at Washington U, I'll go back there. Like you can change majors and switch schools very easily. When I was in undergrad, again, a million years ago, there was this T-Rex who was studying there. The T-Rex wanted to switch from business school to engineering. Now, back then, the business school was a little easier to get into than the engineering school. So it was easier to apply and get into that one and then change after 1 year, no matter what. I don't recommend doing that because, again, like I don't think that's true about WashU anymore. I think the business school is every bit as hard to get into now as the engineering school is. And I'm not sure if every school it's that easy to transfer. I know at a lot of schools it is to transfer to a different department or change your major.
Okay, thank you, Adam. Yeah, coming back to COVID and the politics and how it is harder to get into, what do you think are some good alternatives to studying in the US? What other countries you think are doing better in terms of attracting students?
Europe, the European countries, the Netherlands and I think Germany especially. I mean, a lot of people can study in Germany for free. It's a great deal. Free or 40,000 US dollars. No, it's probably more than that. It's like 50,000 US dollars a year or zero. That's a good deal in Europe. If you're focused, the schools tend to be more focused on the major and less on being well-rounded. So that you'll get it's usually 3 years until you graduate instead of 4. Some people prefer that. To be honest, for people like me, I'm thankful I had 4 years because I changed majors. I grew a lot, and 4 years gave me a space to, and also like in the US, a lot of schools require you to take classes outside of your major. And a number of people get so inspired that they change, which is actually a good thing to embrace that. But again, the question is which other schools, which other countries are good to look at? I really like the European schools because they're a lot cheaper and they're a lot more focused. So people feel like, and it's, I think it's easier to, it's becoming more easy to work there afterwards compared to US. I feel heartbroken about that. I love my country, but I also love I think one of the greatest things about America in the 20th century is even after World War II, America won the 20th century because of immigration. Like we accepted people from around the world, and not just the brightest people, but people who could fill jobs in all parts of the economy. We understood that part of being a powerful country is having people who want to move there. And it just seems really stupid to close your doors. So it breaks my heart when America is doing that. Because when I was an undergraduate student, a lot of my classmates and friends were actually international. I did not have that many American friends in my circle of friends at WashU, but they all like stayed in the US. They're citizens. They were able to their jobs were able to sponsor that process. They had a work visa first, then that became a green card, then it became a citizenship. I really hope America goes back to opening its doors to people. I know that's a little bit off topic, but I felt it was important to say.
Yeah, no, I think it's important for people to know as well. Okay, Adam, thank you for great insight. There's a question from Malika. Is it necessary to ultimately show the skills that represent you as a student in your essay? How explicit should that be?
Liam Neeson's speech from Taken is maybe going a little bit too far. I have a set of skills. No, I think it'll be, it's hard to answer that question because it really depends on what you choose to write about. In some stories, they might be more focused on skills, but in general, like in a narrative, the skills are part of it, but actions are a bigger part, and reflection, actions, process, and reflection are also really important. So you're not just listing your skills. And here's a very blunt and maybe rude way to look at it. The admissions officers are a bit older. You guys are 17, 18. They're not going to believe that your skills are that compelling. It's more that you are somebody who has the ability to learn and grow into something that the university can be proud of. Is it okay to write about the social problem that has somehow affected you? It can be. Again, you don't want to make it a sob story, like where you want the audience to feel sorry for you. There's a great book that I love called The Glass Castle. I heard they made a movie for it, which I never want to see because I liked the book too much, and the movie is going to kill it. But it's a true story. The author's father was an alcoholic who would move to a new town, take a job, get fired, owe money, then have to escape. And the mother did nothing. So this girl, like in her siblings, they were being driven all over the US without the ability to make friends, not knowing when their next meal would be. It was a very hard life. And eventually she finds out that her parents are only happy when they become homeless in New York. This story you would think of as child abuse, which it kind of is. But the thing about the book that makes it a beautiful experience to read is not her suffering. It's that despite everything that she has gone through, she's not a victim. And even when she's 12 years old, she doesn't feel sorry for herself. She doesn't see herself as a victim. And when the parents are homeless in New York and she's kind of embarrassed by them, she still loves them. And she's genuinely happy that they found something they wanted. So the point I'm trying to make about the social problem that affects us, yeah, you can write about it, but it should be a story about not where you're a victim. It should be a story about how this problem changes the way you try to achieve. It should be focused on how you survive, how you cope. The thing that the author of that book did when she was a child is she turned everything into a game. It was an adventure. Deep down, she knew it wasn't. She knew what her father was. But she was able to convince her brothers that this was really some kind of fun game. And that is a beautiful survival story. So, how to take a negative situation and show that you have some way to cope, survive, and improve yourself. This is what we call in English tone. Your tone cannot be one of pity and loss and lamenting. The tone should be one of resilience and pride. Not too much pride, then you're arrogant, but you know what I mean.
I hope that answered the question. There's one more question from Malika. She's asking, for non-natives, it might be hard to show rather than tell in our essays. So how can we deal with that?
Work with me, work with someone who can help you learn to show instead of tell. I don't think this is a replaceable thing. I mean, there are a lot of guides in writing as well. If you don't work, I was kind of joking, like, if you're not working with me, that's fine. It's totally fine. It's like writing is a skill, and it's not something you practice to develop. I remember I took a fiction writing class when I was a sophomore at WashU, and I wrote this. I studied Latin in high school, so it was like full of fancy words and sentence structures, passive voice. If I read it now, it sounds awful. And this character was talking about heartbreak, and it was half a page. And then my friend, who actually was a published author, she was 20, but she was published at 16. She said, Adam, this paragraph vampirically drains the life out of everything that you want to say. I said, wow, that's kind of true. She's like, I can summarize this paragraph in 4 words. I love that chick. And you know what? It was concise, it was active, and it showed the character's pain because there was tone in it, right? So, like, I learned through mistakes how to write. It's part of the process. There's no easy program you can download like in the Matrix to be good at showing, not telling. But if you want a few tips, try to use active voice. Do not use passive voice. That's a big one. Use precise verbs that have actions in them. Don't focus on to be. Maybe after you write something, circle all the instances of to be, then see how boring your writing is. I make the same mistakes. I'm not insulting you guys. That's why it takes revision.
I don't thank you. That's great. Couple more questions. One from Aisha. She's asking, is the essay and the motivational letter the same things?
It depends on the school. Like in the US, we don't call it a motivational letter. It's the application essay. I think the motivational letter is a term more used in Europe.
Okay. And then one other question from Aisha. What difference between essays to some exchange programs and essays to universities?
I've never been in an exchange program, so I can't answer it through experience, nor have I looked at those essays before. I can guess. It's an educated guess. The educated guess would be that for exchange programs, again, you want to be precise and clear about how this program will inspire you and make you more productive in the major that you are pursuing. How will this specific location do it if it's for a specific place? If not, then you need to do the best you can with the knowledge of what the program will offer.
Thank you, Adam. One more question from Aijan. Some people apply to unpopular major just to get into college, and then they switch to the major they initially liked. Is it a good method for some people, or there's a probability that it's not going to happen because there's already too much people in that unpopular major?
I addressed this before in one of my answers. How people apply for like the business school, but then switch to engineering. Some schools, it's very easy to do. The ones I've been to, it's easy to do. I can't speak for all these schools because I don't know that. So if I did speak to that, I would be pretending to know something I don't know. But I imagine at most schools, changing a major is a possible thing in the US. In Europe, it's a bit harder. In Europe, you're kind of, in Europe, the essays are different, right? In Europe, you're kind of showing that you want to go on one path and one major. Whereas in the US, it's more about the journey. So it's something that you can try, but most American schools don't make you choose a major when you apply. They might make you say, which majors are you interested in? But WashU and St. Louis didn't make you choose until the end of your sophomore year. Some schools make you choose at the end of your first year, but I don't think many would make you choose before that.
Thank you, Adam. Agjol is asking, how can we work with you on our essays?
I guess that's a question for Oscar, as weird as that answer is.
You can message us in our Instagram page. I will write it down here. Or you can directly write me in the number and I'll connect you with Adam. I will leave my number here.
Leaving your number in a public place. It's a dangerous proposition at best, Oscar.
When the recording is on.
Yeah. Now it means you have to destroy the recording.
Yeah.
It's compromised.
It's only going to be available for a few hours. Anyways, all right.
I don't want to see my face. That's too much for me.
Are there any more questions from the audience?
I think we scared them away.
I don't know about that. I think they've been involved. Some people had many questions.
I'm glad they have. Questions are important. Someone is named Hell. That's interesting.
Great name.
I studied at Washington University in St. Louis for undergrad, then University of Michigan for graduate school.
Adam, I have a question. Why do you think USA compared to Europe don't make you choose a major, and they have a way more, I guess, liberal arts type of education? Why is it not a thing in Europe? Not a good thing, I guess.
I'm not an expert, but I can conjecture. This would just be my opinion, and it's not my professional field. So please take it with a grain of salt. I think that in the US, we value individualism a lot more than in most parts of the world. Even in the rest of the West, like Europe. In Europe, there's a lot more practicality. Now, in the US, I'm not saying that always valuing individualism is a good idea. It can be, but it can also blow up in your face. The expectation that all Americans should go to a 4-year university when like no one can afford it is insane. And that has to change. Americans should be much more excited to embrace things like going to a school to learn to cut hair. There's no harm in that. Going to a school to learn to be a plumber, it's called a trade school. America should do this more, and we don't. But rather than rag on America, the benefits of doing it this way, of being so individualist, is this American approach. It gives people room to explore, because a lot of people know what they want to do when they're 18, but a lot of them also end up feeling like they were wrong by the time they were 22. The years between 18 and 22, there's a lot of growth. People, and it's not necessarily because you've changed. It's maybe because you experience something that you've never experienced before. You will see that a certain subject or trade is more interesting to you because you never had exposure to it. You never knew that this existed. It's like me and sushi. The first time I ate sushi, I was 20. And I was like, where has this been my whole life? I didn't know sushi was a thing. Well, I knew it existed. I just didn't know I liked it until I had it. And in the US, with 4 years and with a liberal arts focus, you definitely get you get more freedom to explore and be who you are. Be who you are sounds cliche. Let's strike that from the record. It's more, you get to find out what you like. And oftentimes, despite what anyone will tell you, the best way to find out what you like is by mistake, by ending up in something that you don't love, and then seeing it by contrast. So for me, being able to change my major in my sophomore year, it was a benediction, a blessing for me. I'm glad I had that chance. And so this is one of the virtues of the American system. Now, some people know what they want to major in when they're 18, and they stick with that path for the rest of their life, and that's great. But one thing I like about schools like WashU is you really do have to take classes outside of your major, and you have to use your brain in different ways. I know students think, oh, it's annoying, I have to take these credits this semester, it's a requirement. But if your major is the only classes you're having, I don't know, for me it gets kind of boring. It's good to be able to give your brain a rest, not give your brain a rest, but kind of do something else for a change. So this is, I think, the virtue of the American system. I know that's a lot more answer than you probably wanted, but yeah.
Well, for me, it's very interesting to hear a perspective. Okay, question from Salta. What kind of majors do you think are the most advantageous to study now?
Let me consult my crystal ball and look into the future. All jokes aside, it really depends on what you love. Yeah, it's true that a lot of jobs in the future are going to be more reliant on programming and being able to code, being comfortable with technology, but that doesn't mean you have to major in it. So I would say that make sure you're comfortable with tech, but try to find a job that does, think of a major where you can find that inspiration. It's I guess, like, I'm trying to think out loud, Oscar. Can you think of jobs you think are going to disappear soon?
I don't know, maybe something that can get automated, but it's not going to happen in Kazakhstan soon. I was thinking maybe like, I don't know, welding or something of that sort, you know.
There's a joke that I like about English lit majors, which is, what is the difference between an English lit major and a pizza? Does anyone know?
No.
A pizza can feed an entire family. People like to say, what do you do with an English lit major besides be a teacher? And I knew when I was 22 that I would never be a teacher. Again, I was wrong. And I love it. I love every day of it. But the truth is, in my major, the skills I learned are so broad. I could have gone to grad school for many things as an English lit major. It's a bridge to a lot of futures. Same with political science. It really depends on, I guess, how hard you work to find out what path you want to take. That means you got to go to the career office at your university, try to find out what options are out there. So the majors that are most advantageous, pick something that you love doing, that you're good at doing, that you can focus on doing. It's different for each person.
Thank you,
If
Adam.
I was on Wall Street, I would make a lot more money, but I would have no motivation to work on Wall Street. That's not the life I wanted. It's not a life I would ever sign up for.
There's a weird question from Ugjol. Is it okay to write about how we like eating something?
I think
Or no?
essays about liking things are better than essays about not liking things. Liking things is a sign of a positive person. Not liking things, if it's a first impression, might lead to judgment, to think you're a negative one. Yeah, it could be cool. I would ask you though, if you're going to go this route, to make it some kind of metaphor for another part of your personality and your experiences. But of course, please don't say it's going to be horse. It's not as new or unique as Kazakh people think it is.
Is it how do you know that? How do you know it's not unique anymore?
I lived in China before I lived here.
Okay.
Yeah. That answers the question itself, but also even in the US, right? Yeah, you don't really find horse on the menu in the US, but a lot of people will actually not be surprised.
I remember, actually, I never had horse meat in the US, especially like the horse sausage, kaza. But I think, if I'm not mistaken, somewhere in like Sacramento area, they had farms where they raised horse and ate them. Anyways,
Kazakhstan cannot copyright that.
there's a question from Daulet. What brainstorming exercises you recommend?
I don't know if I can answer this question. I think my approach to teaching this is always to talk to the student and kind of find out what their interests are, what their goals are, try to find out where the stories are. Maybe look at the U of Chicago prompts and think about which ones you could answer and which ones you would have a very precise answer for. But that's not really a brainstorming exercise per se. So yeah, sorry.
Let's do maybe some final questions, one or two, and we're gonna wrap. Adam, did you order something?
No, that's the ambulance outside, right?
Oh, okay.
No, I'm joking.
Weird.
Why are my jokes so dark? I guess being a teacher kind of it goes well with having a dark sense of humor. My first year in Japan, I had a 12th grade student, the only like blonde girl in the whole school. She was from Russia, Dasha. And the first week, she was visibly distraught by my humor. I think distraught's a strong word, but she was surprised by it. And she got used to it throughout the school year, but she didn't necessarily like the humor. 4 years later, I visited Singapore, where she was working as a teacher. I met her and another student from her class for tea. And one of the first things she said to me was, okay, Adam, I get you now. I'm a kindergarten teacher, not 12th grade, but after 1 week of teaching these little kids, I need a dark sense of humor. After 1 week of being a teacher, I cannot survive the day without making disturbing, dark jokes. I finally get where you're coming from. I felt so vindicated. Salta, which countries? You're asking which countries I've been to? I'm very lucky. I've worked in 5: US, China, Japan, Bulgaria, and here. I've traveled to 103. I'm very lucky. And that also means I'm very old. It took a lot of time to travel to those places.
Wow. What were some of the most exotic places you've been to?
Afghanistan, Sudan, Ethiopia are among my favorites. The Kurdish part of Iraq is amazing. I love the Pamir Mountains in Tajikistan and Kyrgyzstan. I don't like the word exotic. Like it's so condescending, like on other cultures, right? Like, oh, you're so exotic. I know that's not how you meant it, but yeah. For food, Ethiopia is the best. That's all I'll say on that.
I tried once an Ethiopian dish when like one of my first visits to America in Boston, and a friend of mine took me to an Ethiopian place, and there's a dish where it's kind of similar to like beshbarma in that there's like a pasta-like bread in the bottom and then a bunch of different meats on top, and you kind of just like grab it with your hands.
It's called injera, the spongy bread.
Yeah.
If you visit me in St. Louis, there's a great Ethiopian restaurant. It's better in Ethiopia, of course, but there's a great Ethiopian restaurant that's 1 block from my house. I'll have to take you.
Okay, it's
show
going
you a better dish. The vegetarian dishes are actually better.
All right. Let me ask our audience, who is in the final grade of high school and is applying or thinking of applying to colleges in America or elsewhere, and who is looking for some help with their essays? Ayjan, Salta, Abjol, Dawlet. Okay, so if you need help, we have Adam. I can also help too. Please message me.
There are other mentors too.
Yeah, we have other mentors as well. So please message us via, you can write us in the DMs in 360 Mentors Instagram page, or you can message me directly on my phone, and we'll connect you with the mentor that you'd like to work with. Okay, I guess I'm gonna stop the recording.